The crack of a gunshot echoed through the dusty town of Silver Creek as Hannah Edwards ducked behind an overturned wagon, her heart pounding against her ribs like a trapped bird. It was 1878, and the West was as wild as the stories told back east, perhaps even wilder, as she was now discovering firsthand. "Stay down, miss." The commanding voice came from a tall man with a weathered face and eyes the color of a summer storm. He slid into position beside her, his revolver drawn, his movements precise and confident despite the chaos erupting around them. Hannah clutched her younger sister, Lily, tightly against her side. The 12-year-old girl trembled violently, too terrified to even cry. Their stagecoach had been ambushed just outside of town, and only the timely arrival of this stranger had prevented a complete disaster. "Who are you?" Hannah managed to ask between ragged breaths. "Cole Xavier, madam." He tipped his hat slightly, even in the midst of danger maintaining a certain gentlemanly courtesy. "Most folks just call me Cole." Another shot rang out, splintering wood inches from Hannah's head. Cole returned fire, his aim true, and a cry from across the street indicated he'd hit his mark. "That ought to discourage them for now," he said, his voice carrying a soft drawl that spoke of Texas origins. "They're not the persistent type, just opportunists looking for an easy mark." Hannah nodded, attempting to regain her composure. "Thank you, Mr. Xavier." "I don't know what would have happened if no need for thanks, Miss Edwards." He reloaded his revolver with practiced ease. "Just doing what any decent man would do. How do you know my name?" Her eyes narrowed with sudden suspicion. Cole's lips curved into a slight smile. "The driver mentioned it before he took off for the sheriff. Said you were the new schoolteacher coming from Boston." Hannah relaxed slightly. "Yes, my sister and I." She looked down at Lily, whose face was buried against her shoulder. "We've come to start a new life." "Well, this isn't exactly the welcome I'd hope you'd receive." Cole peered carefully over the wagon. "Looks clear now. Let's get you somewhere safe." With surprising gentleness for such a formidable figure, Cole helped Hannah to her feet and lifted Lily into his arms. The girl was too exhausted from fear to protest. "I have a room at the Silver Creek Hotel," Hannah offered, brushing dust from her traveling dress. Cole nodded. "I'll escort you there. Your luggage," Hannah's face fell. "Everything we own was on that stagecoach. Don't worry. The sheriff will recover it. This town might seem rough around the edges, but we take care of our own. And as the new schoolteacher, Miss Edwards, you're already one of us." As they walked through town, Hannah became acutely aware of the curious glances directed their way. A tall, rugged cowboy escorting a clearly Eastern woman and a child made for interesting gossip in a place like Silver Creek. The hotel was a two-story building that, while not grand by Eastern standards, was clearly one of the town's more respectable establishments. The lobby was clean, with polished wood floors and a small sitting area near a stone fireplace. "Mrs. Thornton," Cole called to the older woman behind the front desk. "This is Miss Edwards, your new boarder. She and her sister had a bit of trouble with their arrival." The plump, gray-haired woman's face immediately softened with concern. "Oh, you poor dears. I heard the commotion but had no idea it involved you. Your room is ready, of course, and don't you worry about a thing. We'll get you settled right as rain." Hannah managed a grateful smile. "Thank you, Mrs. Thornton, that's very kind." Cole gently set Lily down on her feet. "I'll check with the sheriff about your belongings, Miss Edwards. And perhaps tomorrow, when you're rested, I could show you around town, help you get your bearings." Hannah hesitated. This man had saved their lives, true, but she knew nothing about him beyond his name and his evident skill with a firearm. In Boston, she would never consider accepting such an offer from a stranger, but this wasn't Boston, and something in his steady gaze told her she could trust him. "That would be most appreciated, Mr. Xavier." "Cole, please," he insisted with a smile that transformed his weather-beaten face, making him appear younger and almost boyishly charming. "Cole," she repeated, surprised by the warmth that spread through her at the simple exchange. After he departed, Mrs. Thornton showed them to a modest but comfortable room on the second floor. 2 beds with clean linens, a washstand with a porcelain basin, a small writing desk, and a window overlooking the main street comprised their new home. "The school provides this room as part of your position," Mrs. Thornton explained. Meals are served downstairs, breakfast at 6, supper at 6 in the evening. Lunch you'll have to manage on your own, but the general store sells bread and cold meats. Thank you for your kindness, Hannah said, helping Lily remove her dusty shoes. When they were alone, Hannah sat beside her sister on the bed. It's going to be all right, Lily, I promise. The girl looked up with eyes too old for her young face. Are those bad men going to come back? No, sweetheart, and Mr. Xavier Cole, he'll make sure we're safe. I like him, Lily said simply. He reminds me of the heroes in those dime novels Pa used to read. Hannah smiled, though the mention of their father brought a familiar ache. It had been only 6 months since they'd lost both parents to influenza, leaving Hannah, at 22, the sole guardian of her young sister. The teaching position in Silver Creek had seemed like a blessing, a chance to escape the painful memories and crushing debts that had followed their parents' deaths. Now, as night fell over the unfamiliar town, Hannah wondered if she'd made a terrible mistake bringing Lily to this dangerous place. But as sleep finally claimed her exhausted body, her last thoughts were of storm-gray eyes and the surprising comfort she'd found in a stranger's steady presence. Morning brought a knock at their door. Hannah, already dressed in one of her 2 remaining dresses, a simple blue cotton, opened it to find Cole standing there, hat in hand, looking considerably more polished than he had during yesterday's chaos. Good morning, Miss Edwards. I trust you slept well. Better than expected, thank you. And please call me Hannah, he nodded, a smile playing at the corners of his mouth. Hannah, then, I've good news. The sheriff recovered your trunks. They're downstairs. Relief flooded through her. That's wonderful. Lily will be so happy to have her things. I thought perhaps, after you've had breakfast and settled your belongings, I might give you that tour of town. School doesn't start until next week, according to Mrs. Thornton, so you have time to get acquainted with Silver Creek. Hannah hesitated only briefly. That would be lovely. Lily, would you like to come along? The girl, who had been listening from her perch on the bed, shook her head. Mrs. Thornton said she'd teach me to make apple tarts this morning. Hannah raised an eyebrow. You've already made friends, I see. She came down for water earlier, Cole explained. Mrs. Thornton has a soft spot for children. Lost her own daughter years ago. An hour later, with Lily happily employed in the hotel kitchen and their belongings safely stowed in their room, Hannah found herself walking beside Cole down the main street of Silver Creek. The town's not large, he explained, but it's growing. The silver mine 10 miles north brings in steady business, and we're on the main stagecoach route to Denver. Hannah took in the wooden buildings lining the wide dirt street. A general store, the sheriff's office, a bank, 2 saloons, a small church, and various other establishments made up the heart of the town. And where is the school? She asked. Saving the best for last, Cole replied with a wink. It's just at the edge of town. As they walked, he greeted nearly everyone they passed. Men nodded respectfully, women smiled warmly, and children called out, "Mornin', Mr. Xavier," with obvious affection. You seem well known, Hannah observed. Been here 8 years, he said. Came after the war with not much more than my horse and the clothes on my back. You fought in the war between the states. She studied him with new interest. He didn't look old enough to have been a soldier then. Joined up in '63 when I was 16. Lied about my age. A shadow crossed his face. Wasn't much of a boy by the time it ended. Hannah understood there were depths to this man that weren't immediately apparent beneath his easygoing manner. And now, what do you do in Silver Creek? Own the Circle X ranch about 5 miles outside town. Nothing fancy, but it's mine. 60 head of cattle, 12 horses, small operation compared to some, but it turns a profit. They reached the end of the main street, and Cole pointed to a white clapboard building set a little apart from the others. There's your school. Hannah's heart lifted at the sight. The schoolhouse was simple but well-maintained, with a bell tower and fresh paint. A large oak tree provided shade in what would be the play yard. It's perfect, she breathed. Cole produced a key from his pocket. As head of the school board, I have the honor of presenting this to you. Hannah looked at him in surprise. You're on the school board, he laughed at her evident disbelief. Don't look so shocked. I might be just a cowboy, but I value education. Never got much of one myself, which is why I think it's important for the children here. She took the key, feeling slightly ashamed of her assumption. "I apologize. I didn't mean to, no offense taken," he assured her. "Come on, let's have a look inside." The schoolhouse consisted of one large room with rows of desks facing a teacher's desk on a raised platform. A blackboard covered the front wall, and high windows let in plenty of light. A small stove in the corner would provide heat during the winter months. "We have about 30 children enrolled," Cole explained as Hannah explored the space. "Ages 6 to 16. Some can only attend during the winter months when they're not needed for farm work." Hannah ran her hand over the teacher's desk, feeling a sense of purpose she hadn't experienced since before her parents' deaths. "I'll do my best for them. I know you will." The confidence in his voice warmed her. They continued their tour, ending at the general store where Cole introduced her to the proprietor, a jovial man named Benjamin Miller, and his wife, Sarah. "The Millers know everything that happens in Silver Creek," Cole told her. "If you need anything information or otherwise, this is the place to come." Sarah Miller, a petite woman with kind eyes, immediately took Hannah's hands in hers. "We're so pleased to have a proper school teacher again. The last one left us 6 months ago to get married. Been making do with whoever could help since then." "I'm happy to be here," Hannah replied, surprised to find she meant it despite yesterday's inauspicious beginning. As they left the store, Hannah noticed a group of men watching them from across the street. Unlike the other townspeople they'd encountered, these men didn't offer friendly greetings. Instead, their stares were cold, calculating. "Don't mind them," Cole said quietly, following her gaze. "That's Jack Blackburn and his cronies. They run the Broken Spur Ranch north of mine. Not the friendliest neighbors, but they generally keep to themselves." "Are they dangerous?" Hannah asked, thinking of Lily. Cole's expression hardened slightly. "They can be, but they know better than to cause trouble in town. Sheriff Dawson doesn't tolerate it." As if summoned by his name, a tall man with a silver star pinned to his vest approached them. "Xavier," he nodded, then tipped his hat to Hannah. "Miss Edwards, good to see you recovering from yesterday's excitement. Those road agents won't be bothering anyone else tracked them to their camp last night." "Thank you, Sheriff," Hannah said. "I appreciate your recovering our belongings." "Just doing my job, madam." He glanced across the street. "Blackburn giving you trouble?" Cole shook his head. "Just the usual staring contest." The sheriff frowned. "Keep an eye out. Word is he's still sore about losing that water rights dispute." After the sheriff moved on, Hannah looked questioningly at Cole. "It's nothing to worry about," he assured her, though she noticed his eyes remained vigilant. "Just rancher business. Water's precious out here, and Blackburn tried to dam up a creek that runs through both our properties." The rest of the morning passed pleasantly as Cole showed her the remaining points of interest in Silver Creek. By the time they returned to the hotel for lunch, Hannah felt she had at least a basic understanding of her new home. "Thank you for today," she said as they stood outside the hotel entrance. "You've been extraordinarily kind." "It's been my pleasure," he replied, his gray eyes warm. "Perhaps you and Lily would consider coming out to the Circle X this weekend. I could show you a bit of the countryside, and my housekeeper, Mrs. Alvarez, makes the best enchiladas this side of the Rio Grande." The invitation surprised her, but Hannah found herself nodding before she could overthink it. "We'd like that very much. I'll come by Saturday morning then." He touched the brim of his hat in farewell. "Until then, Hannah." She watched him stride away, his tall figure commanding attention even in the busy street. There was something about Cole Xavier that intrigued her, a complexity beneath his straightforward cowboy demeanor. And despite her determination to focus solely on establishing herself as the town's teacher and providing stability for Lily, Hannah couldn't deny the flutter of anticipation she felt at the thought of seeing him again. The following days passed in a flurry of activity as Hannah prepared for the start of school. She organized textbooks, created lesson plans, and met with parents who brought their children to meet the new teacher. Lily, to Hannah's relief, seemed to be adjusting well, having already made friends with the miller's granddaughter who lived with them above the store. Saturday dawned clear and bright, the September air crisp with the first hints of autumn. Hannah dressed with more care than usual, selecting a sage green dress that her mother had always said brought out the gold flecks in her hazel eyes. She braided Lily's auburn hair, so like their mother's, and reminded her to be on her best behavior. "I'm always good," Lily protested, though her mischievous smile suggested otherwise. Cole arrived precisely when he'd promised, driving a well-maintained wagon rather than riding horseback. He helped them up onto the seat, with the same gentle courtesy he'd shown from the beginning, his hand warm and strong around Hannah's as he assisted her. The drive to the Circle X took them through rolling grasslands dotted with wildflowers and the occasional cluster of trees. Mountains rose in the distance, their peaks already dusted with early snow. "It's beautiful," Hannah said, taking in the vast landscape so different from Boston's crowded streets. "It grows on you," Cole agreed. "When I first came here, all I saw was emptiness. Now I see possibility." The ranch itself was modest but well kept. A main house built of sturdy logs, a large barn, a bunkhouse for the hands, and various outbuildings made up the central complex. Corrals held horses in various stages of training, and in the distance, cattle grazed on the open range. "You've built all this yourself?" Hannah asked, impressed. Cole nodded. "Started with just 10 acres and a broken-down cabin, added to it year by year." Pride colored his voice, not boastful but quiet satisfaction in his accomplishments. "How many men work for you?" Lily asked, wide-eyed at the bustling activity around the barn. "Just 4 regular hands, plus Miguel Alvarez, who manages things when I'm away. His wife, Carmen, keeps house." He smiled at the young girl. "Would you like to see the new foal, born just last week?" Lily's enthusiastic response had them heading to the barn first, where a delicate bay foal wobbled beside its mother. Under the careful supervision of one of the ranch hands, Lily was allowed to stroke the foal's soft nose, her face alight with wonder. "She's never seen a horse up close before," Hannah explained as they watched. "In Boston, we didn't have opportunities like this." "What brought you all the way from Boston to Silver Creek?" Cole asked. "It's quite a change." Hannah hesitated, then decided on honesty. "Necessity, primarily. Our parents died last winter. There were debts, and the house had to be sold. I had my teaching certificate, and when I saw the advertisement for a position here that included lodging, it seemed like providence." Cole's expression softened with understanding. "I'm sorry about your parents." "Losing family is never easy." "No, it isn't." She changed the subject, not wanting to dwell on painful memories today. "How did you come to be in Silver Creek? You mentioned the war, but not what brought you here specifically." He leaned against the barn door, his eyes distant. "After Appomattox, I drifted. Tried to go home to Texas, but everything had changed, or maybe I had. Worked cattle drives for a few years, then won some money in a poker game, enough for a down payment on that first 10 acres. He grinned suddenly. "Luckiest hand I ever played." Their conversation was interrupted by a small, dark-haired woman calling from the house. "Senor Cole, lunch is ready." "That's Carmen," Cole explained. "And trust me, you don't want to keep her waiting when food is involved." Lunch was served on a wide porch that wrapped around the front of the house. The food was indeed exceptional enchiladas filled with tender beef and smothered in a rich sauce, beans seasoned with herbs Hannah couldn't identify, and a sweet cornbread that melted in her mouth. "This is wonderful," she told Carmen, who beamed with pleasure at the compliment. "It is good to cook for a family again," the woman replied. "Senor Cole, he works too hard, eats too little." Cole rolled his eyes good-naturedly. "She's convinced I'm wasting away, despite all evidence to the contrary." After lunch, Cole took them on a tour of the ranch, showing Lily how the cattle were herded and letting her feed a bucket of oats to his personal mount, a magnificent black gelding named Thunder. Hannah found herself enchanted not just by the ranch, but by the way Cole interacted with his men and animals, always respectful, clear in his expectations, and quick with praise for jobs well done. "You're a natural teacher," she observed as they watched him show Lily how to properly approach a horse. He looked surprised. "Never thought of it that way, but I suppose teaching and ranching have similarities. Both require patience and clear communication." As the afternoon waned, they settled on the porch with cups of coffee for the adults and lemonade for Lily. The girl had quickly befriended Carmen and was now in the kitchen, learning to make tortillas. "She seems happy here," Cole remarked, watching Hannah's face. "So do you." "It's been a lovely day," Hannah admitted. "I haven't felt this peaceful in a very long time." "The West has a way of healing broken spirits," he said quietly. "At least it did for me." Their eyes met, and Hannah felt a connection that went beyond mere friendship or gratitude. There was understanding there, a recognition of shared experience despite their different backgrounds. For a moment, neither spoke, content to simply acknowledge the bond forming between them. The spell was broken by the sound of hooves approaching at speed. Cole was on his feet immediately, his relaxed demeanor replaced by alertness. A young ranch hand galloped into the yard, pulling his horse to a sliding stop. "Mr. Xavier, fire at the north pasture. Looks deliberate." Blackburn's men were seen riding away. Cole's face hardened. "Get the men." "Water wagons and shovels. Now," he turned to Hannah, his expression apologetic but urgent. "I'm sorry, but go," she said immediately. "We understand." He hesitated only briefly before springing into action, issuing orders as men rushed to respond. Within minutes, wagons were loaded and heading north, Cole riding thunder at the lead. Carmen appeared, her face worried. "Come inside, Senora. It may be a long wait." Hours passed as Hannah and Lily remained at the ranch house. Carmen kept them supplied with food and reassurances, but as darkness fell with no sign of Cole or his men, anxiety began to gnaw at Hannah's composure. "Should they have returned by now?" she finally asked. Carmen sighed. "Depends on how bad the fire." "Blackburn, he has done this before burning pasture to harm Senor Cole's cattle." "Why would he do such a thing?" Lily asked, her young face troubled. "Some men," Carmen said carefully, "they cannot stand to see others succeed when they themselves fail." It was nearly midnight when they heard the wagons returning. Hannah and Carmen hurried onto the porch, lanterns held high to light the yard. The men looked exhausted, covered in soot and grime, but the absence of panic suggested the fire had been contained. Cole was the last to return, dismounting stiffly from thunder, his face streaked with ash and his clothes singed in places. He looked surprised to see Hannah still waiting. "You should have gone back to town," he said, his voice hoarse from smoke. "We couldn't leave without knowing you were safe," she replied simply. Something shifted in his expression, a softening, a vulnerability she hadn't seen before. "Thank you," he said quietly. "How bad was it?" Carmen asked, already moving to bring water and food for the returning men. "Bad enough," Cole answered. "Lost about 10 acres of grazing land and 2 head of cattle. Could have been worse if we hadn't got there when we did." He looked at Hannah. "I'm sorry about our day. This isn't what I had planned." "Don't apologize," she insisted. "This is your livelihood, your home. Of course you had to protect it." Later, after Cole had cleaned up and the ranch hands had been fed and sent to rest, he drove Hannah and Lily back to town. The night was cool, and he had insisted they take blankets for the journey. Lily, exhausted from the day's excitement, fell asleep against Hannah's shoulder within minutes. "Thank you for today," Hannah said softly as the wagon rumbled through the darkness. Despite the unexpected ending, it was wonderful. Cole was silent for a long moment. "I should warn you," he finally said, "that being associated with me might not be the safest choice. Blackburn, he's a vindictive man, and he doesn't fight fair." "Are you suggesting I should avoid your company?" Hannah asked, surprised by the sharp disappointment the thought provoked. "Maybe." "For your safety and Lily's." His profile was rigid in the moonlight. "I appreciate your concern," she said carefully, "but I make my own decisions about who I allow in my life. And frankly, Mr. Xavier, I've found your presence far more protective than dangerous." He glanced at her, a smile slowly replacing his grim expression. "You're not what I expected, Hannah Edwards." "Is that a compliment?" "Definitely." His smile widened. "Just be careful. Silver Creek might seem peaceful, but there are undercurrents." When they reached the hotel, Cole carried the sleeping Lily upstairs while Hannah followed with their belongings. He settled the girl gently on her bed, his large hands surprisingly tender as he arranged the blanket over her. At the door to their room, he paused. "I'd like to call on you again." Properly this time, without ranch emergencies. Hannah felt a rush of warmth that had nothing to do with the blanket still draped around her shoulders. "I'd like that very much." Sunday after church, perhaps, we could have dinner." "Yes," she said, realizing how much she wanted to spend more time with this complex, honorable man. He hesitated, then slowly reached out to touch her cheek with calloused fingers. "Good night, Hannah. Good night, Cole." After he left, Hannah stood for a long moment with her hand pressed to the spot his fingers had touched, a smile playing on her lips despite the eventful day. Whatever undercurrents existed in Silver Creek, she was increasingly certain that Cole Xavier was someone she could trust not just with her safety, but perhaps, eventually, with her heart. The following Monday, Hannah began her teaching duties at the schoolhouse. The children of Silver Creek proved to be a diverse group, from the well-dressed sons and daughters of the banker and store owners to the rough-and-tumble offspring of miners and ranch hands. What they shared was a hunger for knowledge that both surprised and delighted Hannah. By Friday, she had settled into a comfortable routine. Mornings were spent at the school, afternoons preparing lessons and grading papers, and evenings with Lily, exploring their new home or reading together beside the hotel fireplace. Cole had called on her twice during the week, once bringing a basket of fresh apples from his orchard, and the second time escorting her and Lily to a community gathering at the church. Each encounter deepened her appreciation for his character, his quiet strength, his intelligence that belied his lack of formal education, and his genuine care for the town and its people. She found herself looking forward to their Sunday dinner with an eagerness that both excited and alarmed her. It had been only 2 weeks since their arrival in Silver Creek. Developing feelings for someone so quickly seemed imprudent at best. Yet when Sunday arrived and Cole appeared at the hotel dressed in his best clothes, his usually unruly hair tamed for the occasion, Hannah's reservations melted away. He took her to the only restaurant in town, a small establishment attached to the hotel but separate from its regular dining room, where tablecloths and candles created an atmosphere of modest elegance. "Everyone's talking about you," Cole said as they settled at their table. "The children love you. Parents say they've never seen their youngsters so excited about schoolwork." Hannah blushed at the praise. "They're wonderful students. Eager to learn, respectful mostly," she added with a laugh, thinking of the Dawson twins who had already established themselves as the class mischief makers. "That's your influence," he insisted. "A good teacher makes all the difference." Their conversation flowed easily throughout the meal, covering everything from books they'd read to childhood memories to dreams for the future. Hannah found herself sharing stories she hadn't told anyone since her parents' deaths about her father's love of poetry, her mother's talent for finding beauty in the simplest things. The close-knit family they'd been before illness tore them apart. Cole, in turn, spoke of growing up on a small farm in Texas, his father's early death that had forced him to become the man of the house at 12, and the sister he'd lost touch with after the war. "I've tried to find her," he admitted. "Wrote to our old neighbors, even hired a Pinkerton once." "No trace." "I'm sorry," Hannah said, reaching across the table to touch his hand. "Family is precious." He turned his hand to grasp hers. "Yes, it is, which is why I admire how you've cared for Lily. Taking on such responsibility couldn't have been easy." "She's all I have left," Hannah said simply. "And in truth, caring for her gave me purpose when I might otherwise have been lost in grief." As they walked back to the hotel after dinner, Cole offered Hannah his arm. The simple contact, her hand resting in the crook of his elbow, felt both proper and thrillingly intimate. "I've enjoyed tonight," he said as they reached the hotel entrance. "So have I." She looked up at him, wondering if he might kiss her, half hoping he would despite the public setting. Instead, he lifted her hand and pressed his lips to her knuckles, his eyes never leaving hers. Until tomorrow, Hannah. It was enough, more than enough, to send her floating up the stairs to her room, where Lily waited with eager questions about the evening. "Do you like him?" The girl asked bluntly after Hannah had described the dinner. "I do," Hannah admitted, seeing no reason to dissemble with her perceptive sister. "He's a good man. Are you going to marry him?" Lily's eyes sparkled with mischief and genuine interest. Hannah laughed, though the question sent an unexpected thrill through her. "Goodness, Lily, I've known him barely 2 weeks. Ma always said you'd know the right man when you met him," Lily pointed out, said it wouldn't take long to recognize him. Hannah smoothed her sister's hair, her throat tight with emotion. Mother was a romantic, but she was right about Pa. Yes, Hannah conceded, she was. The next few weeks established a pattern. Hannah taught during the day, spent evenings with Lily, and saw Cole regularly for dinners, community events, or simple walks through town. Sometimes they included Lily in their outings, other times Mrs. Thornton was happy to look after the girl for a few hours. October brought cooler weather and preparations for the Harvest Festival, an annual event in Silver Creek that involved the entire community. Hannah's students were creating decorations, practicing songs and recitations, and buzzing with excitement about the competitions and treats that would be featured. "You'll enter the pie contest, won't you?" Cole asked one evening as they sat on the hotel porch, watching the sunset paint the sky in brilliant oranges and pinks. Hannah laughed. "I'm afraid my culinary skills are limited at best. Boston girls of good family aren't expected to cook. Mrs. Thornton would help you," he suggested. "She takes great pride in her blue ribbon collection." "Perhaps," Hannah allowed, "though I suspect my talents lie elsewhere." "True enough," Cole agreed with a smile. "Your reading at the last church social had everyone spellbound. I've never heard Longfellow sound so captivating." Hannah felt herself blushing at the compliment. Over the past weeks, she'd grown more comfortable with Cole, but his praise still had the power to fluster her. "Will you be entering any contests?" she asked to change the subject. "The shooting competition, probably." "Maybe the horseshoes tournament." He leaned back in his chair, stretching his long legs out before him. "And I usually volunteer my barn for the harvest dance." "A dance?" Hannah perked up at this. "I haven't been to a dance since before my parents fell ill." "Then I'll make sure to reserve the first dance with the prettiest schoolteacher in Colorado territory," he said with a wink. Their pleasant conversation was interrupted by the arrival of Sheriff Dawson, his expression grave as he approached the porch. "Evening, Hannah. Cole, could I have a word?" Cole stood immediately, noting the sheriff's serious demeanor. "Of course." The two men stepped away, speaking in low voices that Hannah couldn't quite hear. She saw Cole's posture stiffen, his face hardening into the same expression she'd seen the day of the fire. When he returned to her side, the relaxed cowboy was gone, replaced by a man prepared for trouble. "What is it?" she asked, concern tightening her chest. "Blackburn's been making threats," Cole said simply. "Nothing specific, just drunk talk in the saloon, but the sheriff thought I should know." "Threats against you?" Cole hesitated. "Against me, against anyone associated with me," understanding dawned. "You mean me and Lily." "I don't think he'd actually harm a woman or child," Cole said quickly. "But Blackburn's unpredictable when he's drinking, and he knows." He trailed off, looking uncomfortable. "Knows what?" Hannah pressed. Cole met her eyes directly. "That I care about you, that hurting you would hurt me." The admission hung in the air between them, simultaneously warming Hannah's heart and chilling her with fear. They hadn't spoken explicitly about their feelings, though she'd known for weeks now that what she felt for Cole went far beyond friendship or gratitude. "I see," she said finally. "What does the sheriff suggest?" "Just caution. Don't go anywhere alone, especially after dark. Keep your doors locked." Cole ran a hand through his hair, a gesture she'd come to recognize as a sign of frustration. "I'm sorry, Hannah. This is exactly what I feared, that my problems would become yours." "They already were," she said softly. "The moment you saved us from those road agents, our lives became connected. I don't regret that, Cole." He looked at her with such intensity that she felt her breath catch. "You should. A proper Boston lady deserves better than being dragged into a range war." "Perhaps I'm not as proper as I appear," she replied with a small smile, trying to lighten his mood. "Besides, I'm a Silver Creek lady now." His expression softened. "That you are." He glanced at the darkening sky. "I should get you inside, it's getting late." As they stood, Hannah impulsively placed her hand on his arm. "Cole, I care about you too, very much." For a moment she thought he might finally kiss her. Instead, he covered her hand with his own, his touch conveying what words could not. "I'll call for you tomorrow." "We'll go riding, bring Lily too. I want to show you both something special." The something special turned out to be a hidden valley about an hour's ride from the Circle X. Cole led them on a winding trail through pine forests and rocky outcroppings until they emerged into a small meadow nestled between hills, where a clear stream bubbled over smooth stones and wildflowers still bloomed despite the advancing season. "It's beautiful," Hannah breathed, taking in the peaceful scene. Cole had provided a gentle mare for her to ride and had taken Lily up on Thunder with him, the girls' delighted squeals punctuating their journey. "Found it my first year here," Cole explained as he helped them dismount. Never showed it to anyone else. The significance of this wasn't lost on Hannah. He was sharing something precious, a part of himself that he kept private from the world. They spent the afternoon by the stream, enjoying the picnic lunch Carmen had packed for them. Lily explored the meadow, collecting interesting stones and wildflowers, while Hannah and Cole sat together on a blanket spread beneath a towering pine. "I come here when decisions need making," Cole said, watching Lily's carefree movements. "Or when the world gets too complicated." "And is the world complicated now?" Hannah asked softly. He turned to look at her, his gray eyes serious. "You know it is. Blackburn's vendetta, the responsibilities of the ranch, the school board wanting to expand the schoolhouse." He paused. "And then there's you. Am I a complication?" She wasn't sure whether to be hurt or amused. "The most beautiful complication I've ever encountered," he said with sudden intensity. "Hannah, I've never met anyone like you. Your courage, your kindness, your determination. You've faced loss and hardship, yet you still see the good in the world. In people," he took her hand, "in me." Hannah's heart raced at his words, at the emotion evident in his face. "Cole, let me finish," he said gently. "I know it's fast. We've known each other barely a month, but out here, life doesn't always allow for lengthy courtships. When you know something's right, you don't question it. And it feels right to you," she whispered. "More right than anything has in my entire life." This time there was no interruption, no hesitation. Cole leaned forward, one hand coming up to cradle her cheek as his lips found hers in a kiss that was both tender and fiercely passionate. Hannah responded instinctively, her fingers curling into the fabric of his shirt as she returned the kiss with equal fervor. When they finally parted, both slightly breathless, Cole rested his forehead against hers. "I'm falling in love with you, Hannah Edwards. Probably have been since the moment you stood up after that ambush, more concerned about your sister than your own safety." Hannah's heart soared at his declaration. "I think I've been falling for you since you carried Lily to safety, or perhaps when you helped that struggling student during your school board visit, or when you faced down a fire to protect your land." She smiled. "There are too many moments to choose from." He kissed her again, briefer this time but no less meaningful. "I want to court you properly, with your permission." "You have it," she said without hesitation, "though I think we're well past the formal introduction stage of courtship." His laugh warmed her more than the autumn sun. "I reckon we are at that." The spell was broken by Lily's return, her arms full of wildflowers. If she noticed their flushed faces or clasped hands, she made no mention of it, simply presenting Hannah with a makeshift bouquet before demanding that Cole show her how to skip stones across the stream. As Hannah watched them together, Cole patiently demonstrating the proper technique, Lily's face alight with concentration, she felt a sense of rightness, of pieces falling into place that had nothing to do with the propriety or timetables of Boston society. This was where she belonged. With these people, in this wild, beautiful place, the next few weeks passed in a golden haze of happiness for Hannah. Her school thrived, with even the most reluctant students showing improvement. Lily blossomed in the freedom and fresh air of the West, making friends and learning skills like horseback riding and cooking that would have been beyond her reach in their previous life. And Cole. Cole brought joy and security to their lives in ways Hannah hadn't experienced since before her parents' illness. Their courtship progressed rapidly, as was common in frontier communities where life's uncertainties made long engagements impractical. By early November, the entire town recognized them as a couple, and most assumed a wedding announcement was imminent. Even Blackburn's continued animosity couldn't dim Hannah's happiness, though she remained cautious as the sheriff had advised. There had been no further incidents since the fire, just occasional reports of threatening talk when Blackburn had been drinking heavily. The harvest festival arrived with perfect weather, crisp but sunny, the aspens glowing gold against the evergreen backdrop of pines. The entire town turned out for the celebration, which began with competitions in the morning, continued with a community feast at midday, and would conclude with the dance at Cole's barn that evening. Hannah had indeed entered the pie contest at Mrs. Thornton's insistence, though she harbored no illusions about winning. Her simple apple pie looked plain beside the elaborate creations of Silver Creek's experienced bakers. Cole, however, had cleaned his plate and asked for seconds, declaring it the finest pie he'd ever tasted. "You're biased," she laughed, watching as he helped set up tables for the feast. "Completely," he agreed cheerfully. "But it's still delicious." The community meal was a lavish affair, with every family contributing dishes that represented their best recipes and the bounty of their harvests. Hannah sat with Lily, Cole, and the Millers, enjoying the food and the sense of belonging she felt among these people who had so warmly welcomed them. As the meal concluded and preparations for the dance began, Cole drew Hannah aside. "Walk with me. There's something I want to show you." Curious, she followed him away from the bustle of the festival grounds toward a quiet spot beneath an old cottonwood tree. From his pocket, he produced a small velvet box. Hannah's breath caught. "Cole, I know it's soon," he said, his voice uncharacteristically nervous. "But I've never been more certain of anything in my life." He opened the box to reveal a delicate gold ring set with a small but perfect diamond. "Hannah Edwards, will you do me the honor of becoming my wife?" Tears of joy filled Hannah's eyes as she nodded, unable to speak past the emotion tightening her throat. When she found her voice, it was barely above a whisper. "Yes, oh Cole, yes." His smile was radiant as he slipped the ring onto her finger, then gathered her into his arms for a kiss that sealed their promise to one another. When they finally parted, Hannah looked down at the ring sparkling in the autumn sunlight. "It was my mother's," Cole explained. "The only thing of hers I managed to keep through the war and all the years after. I've been carrying it since the day I took you to my special valley, waiting for the right moment." "It's perfect," Hannah assured him, touching the ring reverently. "When?" "I mean, have you thought about when we might?" "Christmas," he suggested. "Unless that's too soon. The ranch house has plenty of room for you and Lily, or we could build on an addition if you'd prefer more space." Hannah's heart swelled at his consideration. Christmas would be lovely. "And the house is perfect as it is." A sudden thought occurred to her. "But what about my teaching position? The school board has already been consulted," Cole finished with a smile. "They've agreed you can continue teaching after we're married." "It's not conventional, but then, neither is Silver Creek." Relief flooded her. She loved teaching and hadn't wanted to abandon her students, but she'd been prepared to if necessary. That Cole had anticipated this concern and addressed it touched her deeply. "I love you," she said simply, the words coming naturally now that their future was decided. "And I love you," he replied, his voice rough with emotion. "More than I thought possible." Their moment of private joy was interrupted by Lily's arrival, her face flushed with excitement. "Hannah." "They're starting to set up for the dance," and she stopped abruptly, her gaze fixing on the ring now adorning her sister's finger. "Is that what I think it is?" Hannah laughed, holding out her hand for Lily's inspection. "If you think it's an engagement ring, then yes." Lily squealed and threw herself at Cole, wrapping her arms around his waist. "Does this mean you'll be my brother now?" He hugged her back, visibly moved by her enthusiasm. "Something like that, little lady. Can I tell everyone?" Lily was practically bouncing with excitement. Hannah exchanged a glance with Cole, who nodded. "Yes, you may tell people, but perhaps wait until after the dance begins. I'd like a little time to enjoy this moment privately." Lily agreed, though she could hardly contain herself as they walked back to join the festival. The news would spread quickly enough, Hannah knew. In a town like Silver Creek, nothing stayed secret for long. The barn had been transformed for the evening's dance. Lanterns hung from the rafters, casting a warm glow over the space cleared of its usual equipment and livestock. Hay bales provided seating around the perimeter, and a small stage at one end accommodated the local musicians, 2 fiddlers, a banjo player, and a man with a harmonica. As promised, Cole claimed Hannah for the first dance, a lively reel that had them both laughing and breathless by its conclusion. When the music slowed for a waltz, he held her closer, their movements in perfect harmony despite the rough plank floor and occasional stumbles from less practiced dancers around them. "Happy," he murmured close to her ear. "Completely," she assured him, nestling against his shoulder in a way that might have raised eyebrows in Boston ballrooms but seemed perfectly appropriate here. They were interrupted by a tap on Cole's shoulder. "May I cut in?" Sheriff Dawson asked, his expression apologetic. "Need a word, Cole." "Won't take but a minute." Cole reluctantly released Hannah. "I'll be right back," he promised, before following the sheriff to a quieter corner of the barn. Hannah watched them, a flicker of concern rising as she noted the serious expressions on both men's faces. Before she could wonder too much, however, Sarah Miller appeared at her side. "Let me see it," the woman said without preamble, gesturing to Hannah's hand. "Word travels fast, my dear." Hannah laughed and displayed the ring, accepting Sarah's congratulations and those of several other women who quickly gathered around her. In the excitement, she temporarily forgot her concern about Cole's conversation with the sheriff. It wasn't until nearly an hour later, after she had danced with several other partners and sampled the refreshments, that Hannah realized Cole had not returned. She scanned the barn but saw no sign of him or the sheriff. "Have you seen Cole?" She asked Benjamin Miller, who was manning the punch bowl. "Saw him ride out with the sheriff and a couple of deputies," the storekeeper replied. "Something about trouble at the north end of town." A chill ran through Hannah despite the warmth of the crowded barn. "What kind of trouble?" Benjamin shrugged. "Didn't say, but I wouldn't worry, Cole can handle himself." Hannah wasn't so sure. The north end of town was where the Broken Arrow Saloon was located, Jack Blackburn's preferred watering hole, if there was trouble there and Cole was involved. She tried to remain calm, to enjoy the dance as Cole would want her to. But as the hours passed with no sign of his return, her anxiety grew. Lily, oblivious to any potential danger, was having the time of her life, being taught simple dance steps by one of Cole's ranch hands and consuming far more sweets than was probably wise. It was nearing midnight when the barn doors burst open and a young boy, one of Hannah's students, rushed in, his face pale with alarm. "Fire," he shouted. "The schoolhouse is burning." The music stopped abruptly, and a moment of stunned silence fell before the barn erupted into activity. Men rushed for the doors, women gathered children, and shouts filled the air as the community mobilized to fight the fire. Hannah stood frozen for a moment, her mind struggling to process this new disaster. Her schoolhouse burning, and Cole still absent. Hannah. Lily appeared at her side, eyes wide with fear. "What's happening?" Forcing herself to focus, Hannah took her sister's hand. "There's a fire at the school. We need to stay here where it's safe." She looked around for Mrs. Thornton or the Millers, needing someone to watch Lily if she decided to go see for herself. Before she could locate them, however, the barn doors opened again to admit Cole. He was disheveled, with a cut on his cheekbone and what appeared to be a darkening bruise on his jaw, but he was whole and upright. Relief flooded Hannah, quickly followed by concern at his appearance. "Cole," she rushed to him. "What happened? Are you hurt?" "Nothing serious," he assured her, though the grimness of his expression belied his casual tone. "Blackburn and his men got into a brawl at the saloon. When the sheriff tried to break it up, things got ugly." His eyes scanned the now half-empty barn. "I heard shouting about a fire." "The schoolhouse," Hannah confirmed. "They've all gone to fight it." Cole's expression darkened further. "This is no coincidence. Blackburn was in custody when I left the sheriff's office. His men must have done this on his orders." "But why the schoolhouse?" Hannah asked, bewildered. "What does that have to do with your feud?" "Because it matters to me," Cole said simply. "Because I'm on the school board, because I care about this town's future, and now—" He looked at her hand where his ring glinted in the lantern light. "Because it matters to you." Understanding dawned, cold and terrible. "This is because of me, because we're engaged." "No," Cole said firmly. "This is because Jack Blackburn is a vindictive, small-minded man who can't stand to see others prosper. It has nothing to do with you, except that you're another person I care about, which makes you a target in his warped mind." Hannah felt sick. Her beautiful schoolhouse, the children's books and materials, the decorations they'd made for the harvest festival all potentially destroyed because of a man's petty revenge. "I need to see," she said, already moving toward the door. "I need to know how bad it is." Cole caught her arm. "Hannah, wait, it's not safe. If Blackburn's men are still around, they won't be," she reasoned. "Not with half the town there fighting the fire, even they aren't that brazen." He hesitated, then nodded. "All right, but Lily stays here with Carmen." He gestured to his housekeeper, who had remained behind with some of the older women and children. "And we stay together." They left Lily in Carmen's capable hands and hurried toward the schoolhouse. Even before they reached it, the glow in the sky told them the fire was substantial. When they turned the final corner, Hannah gasped at the sight. The schoolhouse was fully engulfed, flames shooting from the windows and roof. A bucket brigade had formed, but it was clear their efforts were focused on preventing the fire from spreading to nearby buildings rather than saving the school itself. It was too far gone. Tears filled Hannah's eyes as she watched her workplace, her student's second home, being devoured by flames. Cole's arm around her shoulders was the only thing keeping her upright. "I'm so sorry," he murmured. "We'll rebuild it, better than before." "All those books," she said numbly. "The children's work, everything." "Material things," Cole reminded her gently. "No one was hurt, that's what matters." Hannah knew he was right, but the loss still cut deeply. This wasn't just a building, it was a symbol of the new life she'd built here, the community she'd come to love, the future she'd envisioned for herself and Lily. As they stood watching the firefighting efforts, Sheriff Dawson approached them, his face streaked with soot. "Cole, Miss Edwards, I'm sorry about the school. Any idea who specifically did this?" Cole asked, his voice hard. The sheriff grimaced. "Not yet, but we all know who ordered it." He looked at Hannah sympathetically. "We'll find them, madam. They won't get away with this." Hannah barely heard him, her attention caught by movement at the edge of the crowd. A figure stood apart from the others, watching the fire not with concern but with satisfaction. Even in the flickering light, she recognized Jack Blackburn from Cole's descriptions and their brief glimpses of him in town. "Isn't he supposed to be in custody?" she asked sharply, nodding toward the man. Both Cole and the sheriff turned to look. "Damn," Dawson muttered. "Must have posted bail already. His foreman has access to his money." Cole's arm tightened around Hannah. "I think it's time I had a word with Blackburn. End this once and for all." "Not tonight," the sheriff said firmly. "Not with half the town armed and tensions running high. There's been enough damage done." Cole looked like he wanted to argue, but after glancing at Hannah, he nodded reluctantly. "Tomorrow, then. This can't continue." The sheriff agreed and moved off to coordinate the ongoing efforts to contain the fire. Hannah leaned against Cole, suddenly exhausted by the events of the evening. "Let me take you back to the hotel," he said, noticing her fatigue. "There's nothing more we can do here tonight." As they turned to leave, Hannah noticed Blackburn watching them, a malicious smile on his face. Their eyes met briefly across the distance, and the hatred she saw there sent a chill through her that had nothing to do with the cooling night air. Cole noticed her reaction. "Don't let him intimidate you. Men like Blackburn feed on fear." "I'm not afraid for myself," she said quietly. "I'm afraid of what might happen if this continues. To you, to Lily, to the town." He stopped walking and turned to face her fully. "Hannah, listen to me. I won't let anything happen to you or Lily, I promise you that." "But I can't bear the thought of something happening to you either," she confessed. "Especially not because of us, because of me." Cole's expression softened. "Nothing is going to happen to me, and none of this is because of you." He touched her cheek gently. "This feud with Blackburn started long before you came to Silver Creek, and it would have escalated regardless. The man's been looking for excuses to come after me for years." Hannah wasn't entirely convinced, but she nodded, unwilling to argue the point in the middle of the street with the glow of the schoolhouse fire still visible behind them. They collected Lily, who had fallen asleep on a hay bale at the barn, and Cole carried her back to the hotel. "Try to rest," he said as he placed the sleeping girl on her bed. "Tomorrow we'll figure out what to do about classes until the school can be rebuilt." Hannah reached up to touch the cut on his face. "You should have that looked at." He caught her hand and pressed a kiss to her palm. "It's nothing. I've had worse from breaking horses." His expression grew serious. I meant what I said. I'll end this with Blackburn one way or another. Just be careful, she pleaded. Nothing is worth losing you. His eyes softened. I feel the same way about you. He kissed her briefly but tenderly. Lock the door behind me. I'll come by first thing in the morning. After he left, Hannah secured the door as instructed, then sat beside Lily's bed, watching her sister sleep peacefully despite the night's disruptions. The engagement ring on her finger caught the lamplight, sending prisms dancing across the wall. It should have been the happiest night of her life. Instead, she found herself facing the possibility that her presence in Cole's life had made him an even bigger target for a dangerous enemy. Sleep proved elusive, and Hannah spent much of the night by the window, watching the street below and thinking. By morning, she had made a decision, one that tore at her heart, but seemed the only logical course. Cole arrived as promised, looking as though he too had slept little. His bruised face was more colorful in the daylight, but his smile was warm as ever when he greeted her. "The fire's out," he reported. "Structure's gone, but the sheriff has men watching to make sure it doesn't flare up again. I've called an emergency meeting of the school board for this afternoon to discuss temporary arrangements." Hannah nodded, trying to maintain her composure. "That's good. The children shouldn't miss any more school than necessary." Cole studied her face. "What's wrong? Besides the obvious, I mean." She took a deep breath. "Cole, I've been thinking about us, about what happened last night." His expression grew wary. "What about it? The schoolhouse was burned because of your connection to it, because Blackburn knows it matters to you." She forced herself to continue despite the pain it caused. "What else will he target? Your ranch, the people you care about." She twisted the ring on her finger. "Me and Lily." "Hannah, please let me finish." She steeled herself against the urge to fall into his arms and forget her resolved course. "As long as we're together, Lily and I are in danger, and worse, we're making you more vulnerable. We're a liability to you, Cole." His face hardened. "That's Blackburn talking. Or rather, that's exactly what he wants you to think." "Maybe so, but it doesn't make it any less true." Tears threatened, but Hannah blinked them back. "I care about you too much to be the reason you're hurt or worse." "So what are you saying?" Cole's voice was dangerously quiet. "That we should break our engagement. That you're going to let a bully like Blackburn dictate your life, our life." "I'm saying we need to be realistic," Hannah replied, her heart breaking with each word. "Lily and I came here for a fresh start, for safety and stability. Instead, we've been caught in the middle of a range war. The schoolhouse is gone. What's next? Our room here. The general store because the Millers are our friends." Cole stepped closer, taking her hands in his. "Hannah, listen to me. Running away isn't the answer. It never is. Blackburn will see it as weakness, and he'll just find other targets. The only way to stop him is to stand up to him. And how many people might get hurt in the process?" She gently extracted her hands from his. "I have Lily to think about. I'm responsible for her safety." "And I'm responsible for yours, both of yours," Cole insisted. "Let me handle Blackburn. Trust me to protect what matters." Hannah shook her head sadly. "That's just it. I do trust you. It's not a question of trust, it's a question of what's right." She slowly removed the ring from her finger, though every fiber of her being protested the action. "We're a burden to you right now, Cole. One you don't need when you're already fighting so many battles." Cole stared at the ring she held out to him, making no move to take it. "A burden." His voice was incredulous. "Is that what you think? That you and Lily are some kind of weight I'm carrying, aren't we? Since we arrived, you've had to save us from road agents, protect us from Blackburn's threats, and now your school has been burned because of your connection to me, Hannah." Cole's voice gentled as he closed her fingers around the ring instead of taking it. "If you and Lily are a burden, then you're one I'll carry proudly, every day for the rest of my life if you'll let me." His words struck directly at her heart, undermining her resolve. "Cole, no, now it's my turn to finish." He cupped her face in his hands. "Love isn't a liability, it's strength, it's purpose. Before you came to Silver Creek, I had a ranch, a position in the community, material success, but I was just existing, not really living. You and Lily have given me something to fight for beyond myself." Tears spilled down Hannah's cheeks despite her efforts to contain them. "I don't want to be something you have to fight for. I want to be someone who makes your life better, not harder. You do make it better, every day." He brushed away her tears with his thumbs. The only way Blackburn wins is if we let him come between us. Is that what you want? Of course not, she whispered. I love you. Then marry me, stand with me. We'll face Blackburn and any other challenges together as a family. Hannah looked down at the ring still clutched in her hand. Everything in her wanted to put it back on, to accept his words and the future they promised. But the memory of the burning schoolhouse, of Blackburn's hateful stare, held her back. I need time, she said finally, to think. To be sure I'm not making decisions based on fear. Though disappointment flickered across Cole's face, he nodded. Take whatever time you need, but keep the ring. It belongs to you now, regardless of what you decide. Before she could respond, a commotion in the street drew their attention. Looking out the window, they saw several riders galloping into town, one of them supporting what appeared to be an injured man. Something's happened, Cole said, moving toward the door. Wait here. I'll find out what's going on. Hannah followed him despite his instruction, drawn by a sense that whatever was occurring might be connected to their situation. They reached the street just as the riders dismounted in front of the doctor's office, carefully lowering their injured companion from the saddle. Miguel. Cole rushed forward, recognizing his ranch foreman. What happened? The man's face was bloody, his shirt torn and stained. Blackburn's men, he gasped. They came at dawn, tried to stampede the cattle through the ranch yard. When we stopped them, they opened fire. Cold fear gripped Hannah as she watched Cole's expression darken with fury. Anyone else hurt? Two of the hands, nothing serious, but they burned the south pasture fence line before we drove them off. Miguel grimaced in pain as the doctor's assistant helped him toward the building. I'm sorry, Chief, we couldn't stop them all. You did well, Cole assured him. Get yourself patched up, I'll handle it from here. As Miguel was taken inside, Cole turned to Hannah, his face grim. This has gone beyond threats and property damage. They could have killed my men. Hannah felt sick with guilt. If she hadn't hesitated, if she hadn't tried to break their engagement. What are you going to do? What I should have done months ago. Cole's voice was cold with controlled anger. End this. Permanently. Cole, no, stay here, he ordered, already striding toward the sheriff's office. This is between me and Blackburn now. Hannah stood frozen for a moment, torn between respecting his wishes and following her instinct to stop him before he did something that couldn't be undone. In the end, instinct won. She hurried after him, catching up just as he reached the sheriff's office. Cole, wait, he paused, hand on the door. Hannah, please go back to the hotel, check on Lily. Not until you tell me you're not going to do something foolish, she insisted. Confronting Blackburn when you're angry is exactly what he wants. What would you have me do? Wait until he burns my entire ranch, until one of my men or worse, you or Lily, is seriously hurt or killed. Cole's frustration was palpable. There are times when a man has to stand his ground. I know that, Hannah said softly, but there's a difference between standing your ground and charging blindly into danger. Their argument was interrupted by the sheriff emerging from his office, face grave. Cole, Miss Edwards, I was just coming to find you. Got word about the incident at your ranch, and what do you intend to do about it? Cole demanded. Blackburn's escalating, Tom. This can't continue. Sheriff Dawson sighed heavily. I agree, which is why I've already sent deputies to bring Blackburn in. Arson, attempted murder, destruction of property. He'll face serious charges this time. Cole looked slightly mollified, though still tense. And if he resists, my men have instructions to bring him in by whatever means necessary, the sheriff said simply. The town council met this morning after the school fire. They've had enough too. Hannah felt a surge of hope. If the law was finally taking decisive action against Blackburn, perhaps this could end without further violence. In the meantime, Dawson continued, I'd advise both of you to stay in town together. Blackburn might try one last desperate move before my men find him. Lily, Hannah said immediately. I need to get back to her. Cole nodded. We'll both go. I'm not letting either of you out of my sight until this is over. They returned to the hotel, where they found Lily still asleep, blissfully unaware of the morning's events. Hannah sat beside her sister while Cole took up position by the window, watching the street below with the vigilance of a man expecting trouble. Cole, Hannah said after a long silence. About what I said earlier. He turned to look at her, his expression softening. It doesn't matter now. You were afraid, and with good reason. No, it does matter. She rose and crossed to him, taking his hands in hers. I was wrong. Letting fear drive us apart is exactly what Blackburn wants. I won't give him that satisfaction. Hope flickered in Cole's eyes. Does that mean? In response, Hannah slipped the ring back onto her finger where it belonged. It means I love you, Cole Xavier, and whatever comes, we'll face it together. The relief and joy that transformed his face was worth every moment of doubt she'd experienced. He pulled her into his arms, holding her as though she were the most precious thing in the world. Together, he agreed, his voice rough with emotion. They remained that way for several minutes, drawing strength and comfort from one another's presence. It was Lily's sleepy voice that finally separated them. Hannah, Cole, what's happening? They explained the situation in simple terms, emphasizing that they were safe and that the sheriff was handling the problem. Lily, who had already demonstrated remarkable resilience since their arrival in Silver Creek, took the news in stride. Does this mean the wedding is still on? She asked, eyeing Hannah's ring with obvious approval. Cole laughed, the sound dispelling some of the tension in the room. Absolutely. Christmas, just as planned. The day passed slowly, the three of them confined to the hotel room as a precaution. Mrs. Thornton brought them meals and updates on the situation, deputies searching the hills around Blackburn's ranch, townspeople organizing to help rebuild the school, Cole's men securing the Circle X against further attacks. It was evening when they heard the commotion in the street, horses, men's voices, the murmur of a gathering crowd. Cole, who had been teaching Lily a card game to pass the time, moved swiftly to the window. They've brought someone in, he reported, straining to see in the fading light. Being taken to the sheriff's office, Hannah joined him, peering over his shoulder. Blackburn? Can't tell from here. Wait, he tensed suddenly. That's the sheriff coming this way. Minutes later, a knock at their door confirmed Cole's observation. Sheriff Dawson entered when admitted, removing his hat with an air of formality that suggested important news. We found Blackburn, he announced without preamble, holed up in a lined shack on the far edge of his property. And, Cole prompted when the sheriff paused. Dawson sighed. He resisted. Pulled a gun on my deputy. He met Cole's eyes directly. He's dead, Cole, shot while attempting to escape custody. A heavy silence fell over the room. Hannah felt conflicting emotions: relief that the threat was over, sadness at the waste of human life, guilt that she had wished for exactly this outcome in her darkest moments. His men? Cole asked practically. Most are in custody. A few fled, but they won't get far. The sheriff settled his hat back on his head. It's over, Cole. The town council will meet tomorrow to discuss the disposition of Blackburn's property. As his nearest neighbor, you might want to attend. After the sheriff left, Cole sat heavily on the edge of the bed, his expression troubled despite the resolution of the danger. Hannah sent Lily to help Mrs. Thornton in the kitchen, sensing that Cole needed a moment to process what had happened. Are you all right? She asked gently, sitting beside him. He ran a hand through his hair. I wanted him stopped. I didn't necessarily want him dead. He looked at her, his gray eyes troubled. Does that make sense? Perfect sense, Hannah assured him, taking his hand. You're a good man, Cole Xavier. That's why you can feel regret even for an enemy's death. He squeezed her hand gratefully. All I can think is that it could have been different if he'd just been willing to live and let live, to see that there was plenty for all of us here. He shook his head. Such a waste. But it's over now, Hannah said softly. We can move forward, rebuild the school, plan our wedding, make our life together. Cole's expression lightened at her words. Yes, that's what matters now. He pulled her close, pressing a kiss to her forehead. Our future. The following weeks brought rapid changes to Silver Creek. With Blackburn's threat removed, the community rallied to rebuild the schoolhouse, bigger and better than before. Men from the Circle X and neighboring ranches provided the labor, while townspeople contributed materials, furnishings, and books to replace those lost in the fire. Hannah held classes temporarily in the church while construction progressed, her students as eager to learn as ever despite the disruption. Lily thrived in their new life, splitting her time between school, helping at the hotel, and learning ranch skills from Cole and Carmen during weekend visits to the Circle X. As Christmas approached, wedding preparations occupied much of Hannah's free time. The ceremony would be held in the church on Christmas Eve, followed by a celebration at Cole's ranch, now soon to be her home as well. The night before the wedding, Hannah stood in her hotel room, looking out at the snow-covered street below. Silver Creek was transformed by the white blanket, softening its rough edges and lending it a magical quality in the moonlight. A knock at the door revealed Cole, bearing a small package wrapped in brown paper and string. "I know it's bad luck to see the bride before the wedding," he said with a smile, "but I wanted to give you this tonight." Hannah let him in, conscious of Lily's curious gaze from her perch on the bed where she was reading. "What is it? Open it and see." Inside the package was a leather-bound journal, its cover embossed with her initials, or rather, her future initials, HX. "I thought you might want to write our story," Cole explained, "for future generations. How a Boston schoolteacher and a Texas cowboy found each other in Silver Creek, Colorado." Tears pricked Hannah's eyes at the thoughtfulness of the gift. "It's perfect, thank you. Read the inscription," he urged. She opened the cover to find his neat handwriting on the first page, "To Hannah, who was never a burden but always a blessing, with all my love, Cole." Unable to contain her emotion, Hannah rose on tiptoes to kiss him, propriety momentarily forgotten. "I love you," she whispered against his lips. "I love you too," he replied. Until tomorrow, Mrs. Xavier-to-be, Christmas Eve brought clear skies and fresh snow, a perfect backdrop for a wedding. The church was filled to capacity, decorated with evergreen boughs and red ribbons for both the holiday and the celebration. Hannah, radiant in a cream-colored dress that Sarah Miller had helped her alter from one of her Boston gowns, walked down the aisle to where Cole waited, handsome in a new black suit, his face alight with love and pride. The ceremony was simple but heartfelt. They exchanged traditional vows, their voices steady and sure as they pledged their lives to one another. When the minister pronounced them husband and wife, Cole's kiss held all the promise of their future together. The reception at the Circle X was joyous, with food and music and dancing lasting well into the night. Hannah, now officially Mrs. Xavier, found herself surrounded by people who had become dear to her in the few short months since her arrival in Silver Creek. "Happy?" Cole asked as they took a moment alone on the porch, the sounds of celebration continuing inside. "More than I ever imagined possible," she assured him, nestling against his side as they looked out over the moonlit landscape of their ranch, their home. No regrets about leaving Boston behind. Hannah shook her head. "Not one. Silver Creek is where I belong, where we belong." She looked up at him with a smile. "Although I do hope we can travel someday, perhaps show Lily the ocean." "Anything you want," he promised. "The whole world if you desire it." "Just this," she said softly. "You, Lily, our home, our future children, that's all I need." Cole's eyes darkened with emotion. "Children, you've been thinking about that, haven't you?" She smiled at his expression. "I'd like at least 2, maybe 3. "We could start working on that," he suggested with a teasing grin, pulling her closer. Hannah laughed, feeling freer and happier than she had in years. "Mr. Xavier, we have guests who are all too busy enjoying themselves to miss us for a little while," he pointed out, bending to kiss her with an intensity that made her forget the cold December air. When they reluctantly separated, Hannah rested her head against his chest, listening to the steady beat of his heart. "I want to remember this moment forever," she whispered, "the beginning of our life together. The first of many perfect moments," Cole promised. "We'll write them all in that journal." Hannah knew there would be challenges ahead. Life in the West demanded resilience and hard work. But with Cole beside her, with the love they shared and the community that had embraced them, she faced the future with confidence and joy. As they turned to rejoin their celebration, Hannah caught sight of the schoolhouse in the distance, its new structure nearly complete. Like their love, it had emerged from adversity stronger than before, a testament to what could be built when people stood together against hardship. "Shall we, Mrs. Xavier?" Cole offered his arm with a smile that still made her heart race. "Lead the way, Mr. Xavier," she replied, taking his arm and stepping into their future together.